in the Spyro games, it goes into that very gamey, kind of heavily melodic kind of sound that we're very used to in games. But this was very, very unique at the time, a very interesting choice. The hub worlds would have this one kind of feeling, and the actual game worlds would have a much different kind of feeling to them because of the music. So, excellent. All right. Did anyone get that? Yep, that's correct. All right. Very calming music. I might come back to this music after Project 2, or maybe at the end of Project 3. All right. Everyone, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. We are back, and I hope you had a few days to relax. I hope the postmortem, I hope the evaluation assignment didn't take too much energy from you. I hope you were able to catch up a little bit on your sleep, catch up a little bit on your other courses. And I think that even though the course is never super relaxed, I think you'll find that going into P2, the tempo of the course just kind of changes. It feels a little bit more relaxed, not because we're slowing down, but because your confidence is growing. Your abilities are growing, your ability to implement technically whatever design is in your head. It's growing. And when you enter P2 and P3, what you'll find is that it's not an assignment spec that is causing you to push, right? Push hard. It's actually your very own ambitions. For instance, on Project 2, you could come up with a very, impactful, but fairly simple and straightforward mechanic, right? To base your game around. And if you're able to do this, you could implement a pretty simple game that is nonetheless very effective. Which means that you are not putting in, that 1.5 to 2 hours that you did for Project 1, or even more. Maybe you're just putting in an hour a day or 45 minutes, and you're still knocking it out of the park. So we'll see. In other words, your workload in this course from now on is really more of a function of what you want to accomplish than what we put in a spec for you, okay? And we'll let you know if your ideas aren't quite ambitious enough. We'll help you out there. But anyway, you're all very ambitious. We're going to see some very cool stuff, I'm sure. Let's go through some announcements. This is the first day in a while where we haven't been talking about Bethesda. Midterm feedback, your course evaluations, where you get to give us feedback and help us improve the course. That's going to be coming out soon, within the next week or two, I believe. So when you get those, please fill it out, in part because you can get a little bit of extra credit for doing so. But more so, it's just very, very impactful for the course. You want this course to keep improving. You want the University of Michigan and its quality to keep improving. Fill those things out. We look at every single one of them. And please give us as many ideas as you've got, okay? Thank you so much for doing so. P1 Gold grades and feedback should hopefully be released sometime next week, probably toward the end of it. It takes quite a long time to grade the P1 Gold because some of those stages are very difficult and we must play through all of it to be able to give you the proper feedback. However, your P1 research and your P1 project management assignments, those grades and feedback should be coming, I believe, Sunday evening. So you'll get those before your P2 research and P2 project management are due midweek next week, okay? There's some very, very cool stuff out there. I found a Nintendo Switch. By the way, who owns a Nintendo Switch or has used one in the chat? Has anyone used it? Pretty popular console? Anyone? Yeah? So the Nintendo Switch has a pretty interesting security model. And when it comes to the homebrew scene for the Nintendo Switch and other Nintendo products, there's a lot of technical innovation that happens on the security front to make those scenes possible. So here's a really cool video at the, what is this called? The Chaos Congress? Professor Halderman, the EECS 388 security professor, would know a lot more about this stuff, but it's very fascinating. I encourage you to take a look. They dive into how the console maintains its security, even when the hardware gets into enemy hands. Enemy hands being the player's hands, right? You cannot trust the user not to break your console's security, okay? So they'll talk about where the security, what the security model is on the Nintendo Switch and where it falls apart. So how they were able to hack something. Okay, Your first playtesting session will happen in 7 days on Wednesday. We'll talk about this a little bit more when we get to the P2 introduction, but please stay posted for your assignments. Next Wednesday will be the first day that we don't have a normal lecture, okay? You will be spending these 2 hours playing each other's games and writing up feedback, much in the same way that we do for your assignments, right? When you get instructor feedback. So please stay posted on what you'll be doing for next Wednesday. It's a special lecture, okay? So we've been talking, right, this entire course about the power of iteration and the power of the creative design process, right? The iterative design process, right? And so that applies not only to game design and not only to software planning and implementation, it also can apply to other things. For instance, cutscene production. I want to show you, okay, here's a little bit of a trigger warning. I want to show you a final cutscene from the beautiful Resident Evil 7. Very scary game. Very gory game. That's the warning. And then I want to show you how the team knew that this cutscene would be effective before they spent all the time and resources and budget to make this cutscene happen. Okay, so let's take a look at the final cutscene, and then I'll show you how this cutscene was tested, okay, and iterated on. Let's take a look. Reminder, this is a horror game, and I'll give you some context. This is a horror game in which you have been kidnapped, and you have been brought to the family dinner table of a bunch of cannibals, a bunch of crazy cannibals. Let's see what happens.
Where am I? What the hell?
Rise and shine, sleepyhead. It's time for supper.
Who are all you people? Where's Mia?
Eat it. It's good.
Dumb some bitch wasn't no good if it hit him.
Yes.
Not again. Get out the way, Marguerite. His boy's got to eat. He got to have his supper. Come here, boy. Let's do this.
Shit, oh shit, oh shit. He's not eating it, Jack. He's not eating it.
Get the hell up, Marguerite.
I made that for him.
Get the hell out of here.
You're a son of a bitch. Oh, I can't believe it. He's son of a bitch. He's not eating it. He's not eating it.
This was supposed to be a very special feast. Come on, boy. God damn it. I'll bet it's that cop again. Goddamn pigs. I'm coming back for you.
All right. Spooky, huh? It's a pretty intimidating cutscene. So after this, you actually fall out of your chair and kind of break out, and then you have to spend the rest of the game trying to escape this this mansion. This is a pretty intimidating, pretty spooky way to start a game, and it's a very, very beautiful game as well. A lot of resources went into making sure this moment would look very, very great and would be immersive and intimidating. So how did the development team know for a fact that this scene would work before investing all of these resources and time and money in it? Well, they acted out this scene, okay? They took their team members and they just acted it out and saw, is this going to work or not? Let's watch how they play tested this scene.
プリビズでいいんですかね、言葉は。実際に演技をしてカメラテストをする。
どうしたの？食べないのかい？ よくないぜおっさん。せっかくおふくろが腕によりをかけてよ。親父やりすぎやろ。何してんだよ。まるでいいさ。
さあ食え食え。
All right. So there you go, right? So the team decided that they would take a kind of paper prototyping, really low budget approach to just test out the scene. This might look very hokey. However, what it does is it shows everyone that not only does the scene work, but it also shows everyone on the team, and it is a huge team, what the director is going for. What is the vision for this scene? And then all the fantastic professionals they have can go in and fill in all the details and make it work in the game's world and in the game's context. Okay? So a tremendous amount of fun. Capcom is known, is famous for doing this with their cutscenes. Here's a link to the Resident Evil 7 documentary. Who's played Devil May Cry, or Devil May Cry 5 in particular? Has anyone in the chat played it? So Devil May Cry is a series that is famous for having incredible cutscenes, extremely enthusiastic scenes, energetic. And what I want to do is I want to show you how these cutscenes were prototyped before they were animated by the team's extremely expensive and extremely talented cinematics team. Okay, let's take a look. I think you're going to enjoy this.
Yeah. やべえぞ。これでおしまいだ。何もかも。
第2ラウンドだ。ネロ、お前は逃げろ。俺もまだやれる。ボイ、ネロ連れてけ。余計なまねしやがった。それだ。行くんだネロ。足手まといなんだよ。奴の力は予想以上だ。俺たちの方が負けじゃない。俺が足手まといだと。悔しがる暇があるな。強くなる方法を考えろ。もしダンテが負けたらユリゼンを倒すのはお前の役目だ。それがお前の腕を奪った悪魔の名だ。
All right. So yes, this is pretty incredible, no? And so they test all of their scenes in a very, very cost-effective way. And you imagine that many of these scenes that they performed in person with these actors, in props and cheap animation and editing, many of those scenes were tossed out because they simply didn't work, or the director saw them and said, this doesn't quite work, the story's going in a different way, we need a different tone for this scene than what we have in the acting. So it really is an effective way to get incredible and really intricate scenes done, and get them done in an effective way where you're not going to waste a bunch of money and time and resources. So it's very, very impressive. This is to say, we spent a lot of time on this morning. It is to say that there are many, many, many different ways to playtest, okay, and to paper prototype, to verify your game designs, verify your systems, verify even your cutscenes before you invest all these resources, okay? This is something that we need to improve at and we need to constantly work at in order to get incredible things done, even within the short time frame of this course. There's not all that much time remaining in this semester, if you can believe it. It might not feel that way, but look at the calendar. It is true. For the amount that we need to accomplish, there's not a ton of time. So we're going to get smarter, and we're going to be more effective at kind of verifying things before we invest in them. Okay? All right, so let's go over some assignments that have released today. All right, let's go over your first big one. Actually, we'll be doing that in just a little bit. I'll give you the assignment spec right now, though. We'll take a quick look. So your P2 gold spike, this is due in 7 days, okay? A gold spike, it has a weird name. It's not P2 milestone, like P1 milestone was. P2 gold spike. Well, a gold spike in the industry, right? A gold spike is referred to the key feature of your game. The key, most difficult mechanic in your game. The mechanic that you might not know if it's even possible to implement, okay? It is the gold spike mechanic. It's the challenge that as soon as you overcome it, you know that everything else in your project can be done, okay? Think about a game like No Man's Sky, right? What is the gold spike mechanic of No Man's Sky? Well, it is the procedural generation, right? Can we procedurally generate an environment that is interesting? If the answer is yes, then we know how to do everything else. Like the game developers have made first-person games before. They've made games with survival mechanics before. But what they haven't necessarily ever done is made games with this amount of procedural generation before. So procedural generation was the gold spike mechanic. It's the thing that they prototyped first. As soon as they knew they could do that effectively, then they knew that they could make the entire game effectively. Whether or not they executed on that plan is up for debate. But the gold spike mechanic, that most difficult mechanic in their game, was the procedural generation. If you think about the gold spike mechanic of a game like Super Mario Bros. For the NES, the gold spike mechanic there was the jump. It was the most important mechanic in the entire game. And as soon as they knew that they could really implement a great jump, right? The technology could handle it, the design was up to standard, and it would be engaging. As soon as they got that down, the rest of the game was much more straightforward for them to implement. Okay? So anyway, gold spike is your main mechanic. Think about your P2 game idea. You probably have an idea in your head. What is the most important feature / mechanic for my P2 game? This week, in the next 7 days, you're going to implement that, okay? And you'll implement some other stuff to get your game loop finished and complete. But that is what you're focusing on. You're not trying to polish your entire game. You're just trying to essentially create a tech demo for your one most important mechanic, okay? 7 days, one mechanic, and then just, maybe a menu or something to complete the game loop. Make sure the game can start, it can be played, and it can end and restart without restarting the program. That's your game loop. Anyway, all of this is explained and some examples are given in your document here, okay? Let's go ahead and look at a really great example. I think this is actually a P2 Gold, so I don't think you need to have this level of completeness yet. But we'll take a look. Hopefully this runs. Is it gonna run? No? Hey, there we go. Okay, Guru, like Chin Li. So let's take a look. Okay, so we're moving around. Okay, so we can jump. Chat, what do you think the gold spike mechanic in this game is? In this game, you can jump, you can move, and you can press shift to dash. If you dash into a wall, you can make the world turn, okay? And you use this to solve puzzles. Okay, so we're blocked, so we're gonna do this, then we're gonna do this. right? Okay, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? We're gonna jump it and boom, like that, and then boom, like that, right? Get out of the way, get to the goal. So you can see this is kind of a hybrid platforming puzzle game. Ask yourself, what do you think the gold spike mechanic was? Ah. I'm not doing so well this morning. Ah! Rest in peace. Okay, that's good enough. Good enough. Chat, what do you think? It's the rotation, right? Games, all sorts of games have made jumping before. Jumping mechanics have existed for a long time. And puzzles like these, right, where something might be blocking an exit, have been done a ton. But what hasn't necessarily been done all that much, what's fairly novel for this game, is the dash mechanic that lets you rotate the room. Okay? So in this student's P2 gold spike, essentially what you had was one single room where you just had to rotate the room a few times to get to the goal. Okay? It was essentially a tech demo. There was only one level, but it still was great. It proved that this student could implement the rotation mechanic, and that would be very interesting and fun to play around with. Okay? So that is what you're doing this week. You're creating your most important mechanic. We call it the goal spike. And then you're completing the game loop. Okay? Which means you can start the game, you can play the game a little bit, and you can end the game and then restart it. It's a loop. Okay? All right. And then in the second week, you fill that loop out with more levels, right? That put pressure on the mechanic, let the player explore the mechanic in new ways. And then that's your P2 gold. So that's pretty much it. Your P2 research assignment is also releasing and is due in 7 days. Why? Because Project 2 is a very short assignment. It is only a 14-day, right, 2-week project. And so if you know that your game is going to be in the platforming genre, or it's going to be in the puzzle game genre, then you need to quickly go play a bunch of platforming games and a bunch of puzzle games, okay? This is a very similar assignment to your P1 research, in which you had a game, Zelda or Metroid, and you went and found games to compare it to. In this assignment, you are writing on a single-person team, right? Because Project 2 is only one person. You're writing only a 2-page paper, so a very short paper, and you're filling out this template. What you're going to do is you're going to state what genre your game is in. So platforming genre, the racing genre, the puzzle game genre, and then you're going to find 3 games and then compare these 3 games to each other. Okay? So you'll compare game number 1 and game number 2, and you'll say, hey, what are 2 mechanics that are different between these 2 games, and then how do these mechanics matter, right? How do they manifest? What's the impact of these changes between the 2 games? You'll compare game number 1 and game number 3, Constast. There you go. And then you'll compare game number 2 to game number 3 in that same fashion. Okay? So a very short paper that shouldn't take you very long. And then you have your P2 project management assignment going out. Okay? And this is very, very similar to your project 1 project management, but it's just a one-person team now, okay? All of you should go to the Jira site, and you should check to make sure that you have a P2 Jira project set up for you, okay? And let us know if you don't have that. We will be grading your tasks. So you do need to keep logging time so that you can understand whether you are making the right amount of progress for your tasks, okay? And how close are you to that deliverable in 7 days, okay? This is a project where you will be creating your very own tasks. There is no spreadsheet like you had for Zelda or Metroid that tells you what the tasks are and tells you what the time estimates for those tasks are, okay? So you'll be creating those, and then you'll be doing that again on Project 3, but with a 4 or 5 person team, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and introduce this project. P2, I already had it open. Look at that. I was prepared, but I forgot. Okay. All right, so Project 2. Has anyone seen this game before? I think maybe I already showed you this screenshot earlier on in the course, but has anyone seen this? What game is this? You've all heard of it, right? Some of you have played it. It's a famous indie game. It is Braid. Yes, you've seen this earlier. This is Braid, but the kind of, this is the P2 prototype. This is the prototype version of Braid. It has quick and cheap art. It has very few stages, but the mechanics are in the game and they work well, right? And this is, of course, what the game looked like after, I think, about $200,000 in investment from the game's creator and a couple investors, right? To get really high-quality art, to polish up the game's aesthetics and presentation and music, and to add a whole lot of new mechanics and new stages to explore those mechanics. Okay, so we had a man named August Browning a few years ago come to EECS 494 from Riot Games, and he said, at Riot Games, they do a lot of rapid prototyping, right? So rapid prototypes help you nail down the design before things get super expensive, okay? So the idea is, right, this version of Braid took only several months to create. On a one-person team, right? Jonathan Blow had an idea, and he wanted to know whether it would work as a video game. It did. And so this took 2 years and $100,000 plus of investment, okay? And the question is, how do you know that you want to spend that amount of money, right? How do you know this isn't going to be wasted? Because that's a lot of time and that is a lot of money to invest in a game design that might not work out. Well, the whole point was that they made this prototype so that they could know. Here's another way to think about this in the context of this course, okay? This P2 assignment, this P2 rapid prototype project, is 2 weeks and 150 points. Soon, right, in just a couple weeks, you'll be working on your Project 3 assignment, your big showcase game, which will have, 4 times as much time put into it, and several times as many points as well. So you can think of this P2 as the prototype and P3 as the final game. Please note, you don't need to take your P2 and turn it into your P3 project. But you can do that if you want to, and you can use the Project 2 to kind of verify and vet your game design ideas for use in a later Project 3 assignment, okay? So let's talk about the timeline for your Project 2, okay? There are just a few dates that we care about, and again, you can think of Project 2 in terms of engineering, design, and business/production, okay? So you care about today, you care about a week from now, 7 days, and you also care about 2 weeks from now on the 14th, all right, midway through October. So today, we're releasing P2 Gold Spike. This is the first 7-day sprint, your first agile sprint, in which you need to essentially create a closed gameplay loop tech demo that features and exhibits your primary mechanic, the most difficult mechanic in your game, okay? The hardest thing that you're going to be implementing, you want to work on it that week, okay? You do the hardest stuff first so that you know everything's going to work out. Or you can pivot after 7 days and do a different mechanic if it doesn't work out. Your P2 research assignment has also released today and is due in 7 days. That's because in order to make something that is new and novel, that's the whole point of P2. Make something new. Make something surprising. Explore a game design idea that's been in your head for a long time, but you don't know if it's going to work, okay? In order to properly do that and explore something that's new, you need to go and see what is already out there, okay? And you do that through your research assignment. Go play some games. Go write some text about how you think they work, how they don't work, what are the difference between these games in this genre. And you also have your P2 project management assignment releasing today as well. So you want to start logging and start taking a systematic approach to your creative process, okay? Then, 7 days later, we will just jump straight into P2 Gold. You will take the tech demo, the prototype that you created in this first 7 days, and you'll polish it up. You'll add content, you'll fix bugs, and you will explore your mechanic further in this P2 Gold. Okay? And then you'll have, I'm blocking it, I apologize. You'll have, at the very end, another very short, very easy P2 postmortem assignment. Okay? So that we can just kind of reflect on how things went and come up with some ideas for how you can have a really great P3 project where all the marbles are for this course. Okay? Something I want to say about on the topic of these postmortem assignments, they're easily my most the assignment I love to grade the most. And the reason is I love to hear and see your ideas for what went wrong. Okay, what can I tweak? What can I change so that my future projects go much better? Okay? It really is just the iterative process in a nutshell. Look at what happened, come up with some ideas, and on the next project, try them out. If they don't work, look at what happened, look at why they didn't work, and try and use that to figure out some new ideas to change and make your projects better. Okay, this is the exact process we use to make the course better, to make commercial games better, right? To make your teams better when you get out into industry, to make commercial projects better, to make academic research better, right? This is such a universal thing, so I love to see you explore it. So Project 2, some additional information about it that you might care about. Teams of 1, okay? This is a project that is short, and it's a one-person team. You know, if you're on a team for Project 1, if you're on a team for Project 3, you might not have the ability to explore that crazy, exciting game design idea that you've had in your head since you were a child. But because this is a one-person project, you have that ability. There's no one who's going to hold you back. Go explore whatever idea, crazy, exciting idea you've had. Just keep the scope in check because you do only have 14 days, okay? The focus here is on trying something weird and exciting and novel, okay? Focus on doing something that you don't know if it'll work. You've never really seen it before in games that are already out there, okay? You're trying, the game design doesn't necessarily need to be fun, okay? It needs to be novel, so you're doing something new, and it needs to use guidance in some way. It needs to have interesting decisions in some way, okay? And some juice as well. But it doesn't necessarily need to have fun, okay? If the game design is new and it has interesting decisions and it has guidance, the design might turn out to just not be all that great, right? That's okay. You will not be punished on this assignment for ending up with a game that isn't fun. So long as it has these things, you're going to get those points, okay? So don't be afraid to do something novel and a little bit strange. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, okay? P2 is for innovation and not necessarily, we don't care so much about the final result. We care about your process and what you shoot for, okay? Another thing that you should consider is focus on using architectures that will scale. Focus on keeping a code base as unspaghettied as possible. And the way that you typically go about that is by using design patterns that work well for your game's design. Okay? So making use of things like singleton, making use of observer, make use of that code we gave you, the event bus system, to implement the pub sub design pattern. Okay? Keep your systems isolated. If one system were literally deleted right now out of your code base, would your game still run? Would it compile? Right? These are tests you can do to kind of keep your code base in a very kind of refactored mode as you move on. Okay? So you're free from your Project 1 spaghetti code base that you wrote in a haze because you're moving so fast. So please focus on, okay, how can we do a small project right? And then you'll take this practice into your Project 3 where it really matters because you've got a team, okay? So this semester, I want you to be very careful about implementing multiplayer, okay? So local multiplayer, it can be done if we simulate it via Parsec, okay? Parsec, you can use Parsec to fake a local multiplayer experience, even though everyone's online, okay? However, it's not the world's best experience. So this semester, I would encourage you to consider doing a single-player experience most of the time. It's going to be more straightforward. It's going to work better. Unfortunately, we don't have time in the course as is to get into doing a really robust online multiplayer experience. So I would ask you to avoid network functionality. I'm not going to tell you not to. It is usually banned. It is not banned this semester, but please consider doing single player instead. It's going to be a better experience for you, and it will allow you to focus more on the game's design rather than getting bogged down in a bunch of networking related issues and synchronization bugs. That's what happened to me when I took the course. I was the main networking engineer for a multiplayer game that you'll be seeing pretty soon. And as a result, I spent pretty much all my time fixing networking bugs and reasoning about the networking architecture, and the game's design suffered as a result. So anyway, you want to ask on Piazza an email before using major external assets. You can use the asset store. You can use opengameart.org on this project. You can also, on this project, since you're all working on different games, you can talk about each other's code a bit. You can ask each other on the Discord, in your personal messages, like, hey, how did you implement this thing? What was your technique? What was your approach? Learn from each other. You're all working on different stuff, so we don't have to worry so much about copying. There are some prohibited game types on this Project 2 assignment. You may not make minigame collections. So do not make a Mario Party style game. Do not make a WarioWare style game. You want to focus on one game, okay, and one set of mechanics. This is because it's hard enough for us to make one game that is engaging, right, has consequence, has surprise, right, and well-guided, right, so that's easy for the player to understand. It's hard enough to make one game that meets these expectations, let alone 10 or 50, okay? So no minigame collections, no super violent games, okay? No games where the only purpose is to be violent and be gory. Remember, like, you do represent the University of Michigan, and these games will be made public when you are finished with them in 2 weeks on your websites. If you are wondering at all if something's on the edge, please just send us a Discord or Piazza message or email, and we'll talk with you about that, okay? If you've got something you feel might straddle the line. And please, no turn-based RPGs, okay? No turn-based RPGs this semester. Unfortunately, they take a long, long time to develop and kind of move. Try and avoid tower defense as well, unless you can make it into a short-term thing. If you can make it a fast and rapid RPG that's turn-based, or a rapid tower defense that's turn-based, that's awesome. But please, before you go into this genre, please let us know what your design is. Make contact with us so that we know we won't be playing for 2 hours straight, just trying to level up to see the final mechanic in your game, okay? That's a bad news as far as grading goes. Also, these kind of games do not work very well at the showcase because people do not have enough time to play. Okay, so does anyone have any questions on the topic of Project 2? Okay, does anyone have any questions? And then I'll show you some examples of Project 2, successful P2 games in the past. Just to confirm, even if we want to use the Unity store, we still need to ask if it's okay first. You don't need to ask unless it's a huge part of your project, okay? What we need to avoid is we don't want you to download your entire game and then just make tweaks to it. Don't download a template, okay? If you're just downloading like 1 or 2 3D models, if you're just downloading some music, then that's fine. You don't need to let us know. Just put those resources in your credits.txt. Make sure you let us know like what you used, what external assets were brought into the project, okay? And we appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, what I want to do now is I want to show you some examples of fantastic P2 golds from previous semesters, okay? This first one is a game by Hannah Kawusa, a former EECS494 instructor who's at Amazon now, and she made a game called One Button. It is a game where you only use the spacebar to do all of your work, okay? And here it is. Here's the first stage of the game. You're this ball, and you constantly move forward by yourself. And the only button you have at your disposal is the spacebar. So hold spacebar to charge, okay? Boop. And then you can release it to dash through obstacles and be invincible. Doink, right? And there's this really, really nice stage where, there's no penalty for messing up. you just get bounced back a little bit. You can try again. Now you get this stage where you have to actually perform, right? There's a test, right? Remember sequence learning and guidance. Practice, performance. Practice, performance. You introduce a new mechanic, a new challenge in a safe way first. Okay, now we jump. You can tap the bar to do a jump instead of a dash, right? So you've got that safe bit of practice first, and now there are actually gaps. There's actually consequence to you messing this up, okay? So now combine the mechanics. We've got two mechanics. You've got a dash, you've got a jump. Now we have to combine them both to do these super far jumps over an obstacle. So we have a little bit of practice for us, and then we have performance, where we have to get all these challenges correct on the first try, or we need to restart, okay? And so you can see this escalation happening. They introduce mechanics safely, and then they ask you for a performance. And then they introduce more mechanics, and then they combine the mechanics. Oh my gosh, this is a super hard one. Look at this. Oh, it got me. Right? So it gets deeper and deeper as the mechanics are combined, as the player's asked to explore them in a unique way. Oh my gosh, this is a hard challenge. My goodness. Maybe the difficulty curve is a little bit steep on this one, but still a tremendous P2 gold. And it is a game that also, it's very simple, right? It is deceptively simple, but that's really all we're asking for P2. We're asking for a set of simple but deep mechanics that are engaging, makes the player think, and makes them make decisions, and is well guided so that they escalate in a really great way, so that players don't get confused, okay? That's all we're asking for. I'll show you this game called Hell Hath Frozen Over, a very fun game by Michael Siciliano, who was just did the IGDA Ann Arbor thing. Okay. Let's take a look here. I'll turn the music down. This is a game that uses the input system, and it has a little tutorial as well. So this is something that's a little bit unfortunate. It relies too heavily on text. But fortunately, it does have a tutorial, so that's good. So use the left analog stick to move, the right analog stick to aim, A to jump, and the D-pad to adjust the camera. Okay, jump. Move down left to bumper to collect snow. Okay, so we're collecting snow. We can see a little progress bar here. Look at that. You can see it. We're collecting snow. Okay, right bumper places a block in the camera's forward direction. Okay, press X converts block to 10 snowballs. Okay, so we can kind of build ourselves a little fort here. Okay, and we can use this. Okay, and we can convert a block to snowballs. How do I do that again? Oh, I'm not sure how to do that. How do we do this? Oh, I need to get snow first. Okay, so now we're in the real game, right? So it's unfortunate that this game uses all that text and doesn't kind of show us what we should be doing, because it's easy to get confused, but it's still a very interesting game. Okay, so we're building up snow. You can see we're building up snow in the corner, and now I'm going to convert that to snowballs. How do I shoot? That's how we shoot. So I can attack with the snowball if I have enough of them. You can see I've got 1 minute, I've got 60 seconds to build a fort, okay, before something's happening. And I just love the atmosphere. You hear this music? It sounds like I'm alone and I'm surrounded, right? Something bad is gonna happen. You just know it, okay? So I'm gonna build myself a little fort here. And let's build it here. Okay, here's my fort, team. What do you think? What do you think of my fort? Okay, I'm now going to use my I'm going to use my remaining time to build up. Okay, I've got an idea. Okay, we got 20 seconds. What I'm going to do is I'm going to build up if I can. Uh-oh. Oh, I'm stuck. I'm stuck, chat. I'm stuck. I'm stuck. I can't do anything. I'm stuck. Oh, no. How do I get rid of my block? Can I get rid of the block? I cannot do it. Uh-oh. Oh boy, oh boy. Alright, so this one has some problems, doesn't it? Play lame, win games, yeah. So that game has some issues, right? It's a pretty good Project 2, but it has some problems. It relies way too much on text for its guidance, and it has some bugs, right? I got trapped in my own fort and I couldn't jump out. That's a problem, right? And it would probably also be nice if I had a health bar instead of a one-hit kill, but for simplicity's sake, that kind of works. But anyway, that's still a pretty good P2 Gold. It tries to do something novel. It combines a third-person action game where you can run around and dodge and shoot with the mechanics of a tower defense, a fast-paced tower defense, so the player isn't waiting too long. So it's a very novel and interesting premise. It's not all that fun, which is fine, because on Project 2, we're not aiming for fun. It has decisions, it has some guidance, so it's not perfect, and it's a novel idea. So this was a great P2, okay, even though it didn't quite work out. Here's one that definitely did work out. This is called Enlighten. Okay? So we got this kind of third-person platformer. Okay, I can jump. Look at that, look at that. That's beautiful. Just in time. Just in time controls. Press space to jump, okay? Okay, we got a checkpoint. Come over here. Press Z to operate. Right. So a super simple puzzle to introduce the light mechanic. And then we have a new puzzle, right? So you press Z. Press X. Oh, I'm dead. Alright, I died. So we can move these panels around to kind of redirect light. Okay, that didn't work out. There we go. Okay, so we got another little test here. Let's see what happens. I just shot myself, okay. Okay, where do we need to get the slide to? All the way over there. Ah, over there in the corner. Do you see it, chat? So let's go ahead and get this move. Ooh, look at that. I can get it all the way over here. Can I hit something? Oh, there we go. There we go. So look at how the situation has escalated. Look at how the situation has escalated. Oh, I just shot myself. My goodness. The game has gone to this, gone into a lot more complexity, right? The game is getting deeper. It has a lot more mechanics. Oh, it closed there. It introduces its mechanics, and then it introduces ways to kind of confound the player in those mechanics, right? So you start off with just a simple beam, and then you have a very small room where the orientation of these kind of reflectors is very obvious, and then you have a big room where it's not so obvious. And this part's really cool. This is a part where you have to use the camera to actually explore this world, right? And you have to use the camera to kind of see your way around here. It's a little bit awkward, but you feel like you're actually traveling. This game is a puzzle game. Oh no. This game is a puzzle game, but whereas most puzzle games just have you warping to these different puzzles, this is a puzzle game where you actually feel like you're exploring a world, right? Okay, this is kind of dangerous jump here. Gonna make it. All right, there we go. And then we're gonna turn around here. Okay, I can jump to the other side. Let's make this jump. So there's a little bit of platforming to break up the puzzle action. And we're to this new area now, okay? So let's go ahead and launch here. We got a new puzzle. This is an interesting one because now we have two places we have to hit. And they're on different levels, right? We got one down on the first floor. We got another one on the second floor. So we can kind of solve these. Individually, I believe. So let's see if we can get something set up here. Where can we redirect this to? Can we redirect it this way? I don't want to hit myself with the laser here. There we go. So that's not quite good enough. So we'll see if we can get it down here. No, we can't quite get it there. Can we get it there? This is a hard puzzle. let's see here. We can hit that. So can we redirect that one right here to go down here? Aha! And we're gonna make a big jump. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna make a jump to the other side so I don't hurt myself. Okay. Hey, we got the first one. So now we can do the second level here. Can we line these up? What happens if I jump up and I turn it on right there? Okay. I don't want to jump up and get myself knocked out here. Can we go over right here? Nope. Can we do this? Can we do that? Can we do that? No, I don't think that's going to work. So can we keep doing it on this side? Can we send it to there and then have this one beam it over? Oh, all right, chat. Okay, so we've played this for quite a while, and this is the moment where the game just shines, okay? Chat, riddle me this. Riddle me this. How are you supposed to hit 2 panels with 1 emitter? We only have 1 emitter, 2 panels, okay? This is where the game goes beyond the mirror reflection puzzles that you might have seen in previous games. Mirror reflection, reflecting light to hit a target, and chaining mirrors together is something that has been done in other games. The Legend of Zelda in particular always seems to have a mirror puzzle. This game has those things too, but it goes further. It does something really novel. Okay? What do we do? How do we get 1 emitter of light to hit 2 different targets? And you cannot split the light. It doesn't work like that, okay? Okay, so watch this, team. Watch this. If we hit a mirror head on, it does not split the light. So this doesn't work, okay? This does not work. Okay, so we can get things going over here. We can use this mirror to hit that panel. But how do we hit the other panel? Because we need to open 2 doors in order to get through here. Well, it requires you can be faster than the speed of light. The hint kind of gives it away, that guidance right there. But in this game, light is not instantaneous, okay? In most games and in real life, light just instantly goes. It moves at the speed of light, right? However, in this game, light is actually something that you can sort of outrun, right? So it doesn't move instantaneously. You can kind of chase it. And so what we're going to do is we're going to create a really cool little device here where we trap light. Okay? So let's go over here, and we're hitting that panel, right? So what we're going to do, if I can remember this properly, is we are going to tilt this right here. We're going to tilt this mirror, and then while the light is still going around this little U-turn, we're going to run to the door and get through it, okay? So let's practice. We're going to go from here to here, okay? From here, 1, 2, 3, no, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Oh, geez. Okay, we're going to go 1, 2, 3, go! Run, go! Bingo. 1 emitter, 2 panels, okay? A really, really cool way to use the fact that light does not travel instantaneously in this game to create a new type of mirror puzzle where you have to use new strategies. So an absolutely incredible P2. This is incredible. It's fairly polished, but it's still fairly simple, and yet despite being polished and simple, it is also very deep. Okay? It only really has 1 mechanic, but it thoroughly explores that mechanic in a really gradual rising of the difficulty. Okay? So there are lots of different things you can do with light and reflection in this game that you can't do in similar games. Okay? Anyway, these are fantastic examples of really great Project 2 games. You do not need to hit these levels of quality in this first 7 days. Remember, your first 7 days, you're just prototyping, okay? You're creating a tech demo in which you implement your game's most important and difficult mechanic. and then you complete the game loop. You create like one level to demonstrate why this mechanic is great and why it is worth the player experiencing. Okay? Yes, so I look forward to that. Cannot wait. If you're confused about any of this P2 business, please ask us on Piazza or on Discord, okay? Or send us an email if you want to keep it more private. Okay, so what I want to do is in the next 5 minutes, I want to tell you about the singleton pattern, and in particular, how to implement a manager game object in a really great way. And then we'll go into playtesting, and if we can get that done in 30 minutes, we'll go into juice, okay? We'll start on the juice game design topic, and then we'll continue that on Monday, okay? So when it comes to singleton, like, do you remember what singleton is? Like, chat, what is the singleton pattern? What's the point of it? Why do people care about it and frequently use it? Bingo. Bingo. When you have some system or when you have some class that you really only ever want one of, and you also want a really easy and convenient way to use that class, then you want a singleton. Okay? A singleton is a class that makes sure there can only be one of itself. And it also makes itself very, very easy to use. Okay? You've seen this in the past, but if you look at how Arbor Interactive makes our games and how a lot of real commercial games kind of organize themselves. Oh no! What? I just looked at this last night. Maybe Imgur is down. Think it might be down, chat? Okay, you know what? Let me see if I can load up one of my own projects here. Because we actually have way more singletons than we used to in our games. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Our games are getting deeper and more complicated by the week. So, okay, let's go to this right here. What's everyone drinking, chat? And of course, nothing alcoholic, but I've got some tea here. I've been on a tea kick lately. I used to drink a lot of energy drinks, in particular Red Bull, Monster Energy, and what was called Rain, which is a really tasty one. They had those in Yugos on the campus. They had a lot of those. Diet Coke, we got a coffee, we got a water, we got OJ, right? Hydro Homie for Life, coffee, right? I wanted to get away from energy drinks, and I don't like the taste of coffee, sadly. So I went to tea, which is a less potent kind of version of coffee, and personally I think it tastes a lot better. So we've got some iced tea here, and then I've also got hot tea, these little packets that Myers has, where you can quickly brew a cup of hot tea and dip the bag to get some good tea going. The blood of my enemies. There we go. We got Werner's, fantastic, a true Michigan faithful there. Got Werner's. I recommend Fago if you want some cheap but delicious sugar water. Is it sponsored? Chai? It is not sponsored. It is not sponsored, but as it turns out, you can get publicity in this life by just making a really great product, that people want to talk about. So there you go. Wata, just finished some Werner's. Good for you all. Werner's is delicious. That's the thing I always drink when I get sick. That is the Michigan medicinal drink of choice, for sure. Okay, here we go, chat. So what I want to show you is the loading screen. Unity does seem to be going slowly lately. Okay, so if you look at any scene in one of our projects, what you'll see is this. You'll see a lot of objects that are prefabs, and they have this underscore in front of them. This is simply our way of denoting a singleton, okay? Arbor Card Manager, that manages the cards for Arbor Interactive games. If you click into one of these singletons, the script, the component on these singletons, what you'll find is that they all exhibit the same kind of singleton pattern. Okay? A singleton needs to make sure that if it exists, right, if another instance of itself exists, then it needs to go away to preserve the singleton pattern, right? It'll have something like this. It will have a static member of itself called instance, okay? And this is the one instance that is allowed to exist for this class, okay? In the awake function, or maybe sometimes the start function, the first thing an Arbor Card Manager singleton needs to do is it needs to check to make sure that, you know, hey, the instance doesn't exist yet, and the instance isn't us. So if the instance is already filled, if it's not null, that means that there already exists an Arbor Card Manager in the game, which means that we need to destroy ourselves. We got to go away. Otherwise, there's not a singleton anymore, there's two of us. So if one of us already exists and that thing is not us, then we destroy ourselves and we return. We stop executing code. If an instance doesn't exist, if instance is equal to null, then we need to claim that instance ourselves, okay? We claim that instance ourselves, and then we do a don't destroy on load function to make sure that we don't destroy ourselves when we go to a new scene, okay? And what this does, and then we execute whatever code we want to execute for our singleton, okay? What this does right here is it makes the singleton pattern happen, okay? It makes sure that we will be the only instance of this class in the entire game, and we will never be destroyed when the player changes scenes, okay? So that's the usefulness there. By the way, all of this is going to be handed to you. You can use this code if you want to, verbatim. And it is also, this code is also commented, okay? So you can look at this and it will explain exactly how all of these lines work, okay? And what they contribute to the pattern. Here's something that might interest you though. Usually, if you make a new scene, or if you go into a new scene, it'll be an empty scene, right? It'll have like a main camera, but it'll have a directional light, and that's essentially it, right? Let's create a new scene. Boom, I just did. And look at that. It automatically has all of our singletons in it right away, right? So one issue you'll run into if you use the singleton pattern is that you might not want to start in the loading scene. You might not want to start in the first scene in your game. But that's a problem, because if you don't start in the first scene of your game, a bunch of the systems that you have might not exist. A bunch of the systems that you need for your game to run might not exist yet because they get created in a different scene that usually runs before this one, right? Well, there's a thing you can do that will guarantee that a prefab singleton is in every single one of your scenes, no matter what scene you start in, no matter what scene you go to, okay? And that is an editor script, okay? An editor script is a script that runs in the editor itself when the game isn't playing. And in this script, you can do cool things. For instance, you can write code that, you know, it waits for the editor to have its update run. It waits for the editor update frame, right? It registers a callback on the editor's update. And then every single frame, it makes sure that certain prefabs are in the scene. Okay, enforced prefab exists in scene, which means it goes through, it tries to find out if the prefab is there. If it's not there, it spawns the prefab into the scene using prefab utility.instantiate, right? And so you can check out this code later. It's a really convenient thing to use. All you have to do is create this script and then put it into a folder called the editor folder in your project pane. Just like how certain function names are really special in Unity, certain folder names are as well. If you have a folder that's called editor with a capital E, this will allow you to write editor scripts that can do stuff while you are not playing the game, you know, while you're making the game, okay? So it's a very, very powerful thing, but the gist of it is that you can create manager game objects that always exist. They're guaranteed to exist in every single scene, and they can store useful data for you. We'll go back to our example here. Let's just choose a random one. Arbor Audio Manager. This is a singleton that is dedicated to managing and storing audio clips that are used throughout the game. It is dedicated to handling audio sources so that you can say, hey, audio manager dot play background track. And instead of just playing it, it'll actually linearly interpolate its volume in so that the current track that's playing fades out and the track you want fades in a really beautiful way. If you play some of the Arbor Interactive games, you'll notice that you never have like a cut to some audio. It always fades in this pretty nice way, even though it still has some issues. Anyway, Arbor Ease Bank. This is a bank that just stores a bunch of graphs. And then anywhere in the code base, you can call Arbor Ease Bank .getEase, and then just provide the name, in, out, and you get this graph. In, and you get this graph. Out, and you get this one. Linear, bounce, right? You get this graph. So these are examples of different singletons. We've got where's the scene manager? The Arbor Scene Transition Manager, right? This is a transition manager that handles the loading icon that pops up. It handles taking a screenshot of the current scene, displaying it while the other scene loads, and then when it's done loading, you fade out the screen to get a fade effect, right? So it looks like one scene is melting into another. It's a beautiful effect. Anyway, it's a good candidate for a singleton because this game object manages the transition between scenes, which means it always has to exist, and it needs to not be destroyed when we go from one scene to the next, okay? So anyway, thank you for the bless you. Okay, so anyway, that's a little helpful thing that you might consider using on P2. And I'm actually, during the break, I'm going to post this agenda to the schedule so that you can grab it right away if you want to, okay? Anyway, we're going to give it 5 minutes, and we're going to come back. I'll throw some music on. You can ask some questions, and we'll be back in 5 minutes in order to go through some play testing, okay? And then get to some juice, hopefully. Maybe, probably on Monday we'll do that, okay? All right, see you in 5. Where's the music? Let's get some music going. One of my favorite parts of every lecture, and it might sound strange, is just choosing what music we're gonna go for, right? And playing the music game. What's the perfect music for this moment in time? Let's go with some classic Castlevania. Castlevania Bloodlines for the Sega Genesis, in fact. I did not. I did not know that Symphony of the Night was released on iOS. That's really cool. One cool bit of trivia is that the lady who did the music for Symphony of the Night, the incredible music, and for the subsequent Castlevania games after that, her first game as lead composer was this, Castlevania Bloodlines. Just fantastic music. right. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's get back to it. Okay, so I want to talk about playtesting, and I want to do that because on Wednesday you will be playtesting each other's games, okay? You will be putting out a game that is going to be a tech demo, right? But it'll have the main mechanic in it. You'll be putting that game out, and you'll hopefully be receiving a bunch of useful feedback. You know, how can you improve the mechanic? How can you make it juicier and more enjoyable and feel better, right? How can you make it more relatable and understandable, right? How can you expand it and explore it more? What situations would be perfect for this mechanic, right? Create some tension, make the player make interesting, engaging decisions. And so we need to know how to do playtesting. And we need to know how to be a good playtester and what makes for a good playtest. All right? So this, actually, what you're looking at is a map of my EECS 494 project back in the day. Okay? This was my game. It was called Hell Spells, and we made it on a team of 4. I did most of the networking for it, and it was a multiplayer, kind of third-person, co-op, horde-style game where you played as a bunch of wizards. You had different spells, and you had to run around this environment and fight opponents, okay? Riddle me this, chat. Where did players start on this map? Can you tell? Where did players spawn on this map? Yes, the rectangle, this building, right? And you can see where everyone started off, right? This data here, right, all these lines, this is actually playtesting data. We implemented analytics into our game so that later on, after the playtesting was done, people played our game a bunch, we could actually go back and visualize the route that everyone took to run around, okay? This gave us a lot of information. When we made this first map, we didn't know if players would like it. And when we watched people play the game, they were like, you know, they said it was okay, but they didn't really look like they were enjoying it that much. And this is how we discovered why, okay? We looked at where people went, and when people left the spawn area, they just simply kind of, what did they do, chat? They just kind of walked around and just kind of got lost in the center area. There wasn't any particular place they should go. It was very boring. Only one player decided to walk around the outside and actually explore the map. You know, maybe there's some goodies, some secrets hidden behind the buildings. But there really wasn't, right? It was so boring, very unengaging. Where you went in this stage didn't really matter. There's no exploration to do. We saw this, realized there was a problem. Our stage design is a huge problem, and we remade the stage. We made it specifically so that there were no huge open areas. There were a lot of different routes you could go to explore around in different areas. And this allowed us to place little collectibles. You can actually see one if you look closely in the corner. Little collectibles that would then bring you back to the center. If you collected enough things, you'd actually get a bunch of power-ups that spawned in the center. So anyway, this was us iterating specifically by using data from a playtest. There's actually an extra credit assignment on P3 where if you implement these kinds of analytics in your game, you'll actually, I think, get about 10 points of extra credit right then and there. It's really, really cool. So a big question is why playtest, right? It's a little bit of, you already kind of know this, we've talked about it, but playtesting is a super, super big deal. And you might not realize that until you start, you know, religiously playtesting all the time, right? Okay, we're gonna playtest at this time every week, no matter what we have, we're putting it in front of players, we're getting data, okay? Then make changes, put it in front of players, get data, make changes, right? This is such a big deal and so important that large companies like Microsoft and Electronic Arts and Square Enix all have dedicated huge playtesting laboratories where they will bring in outsiders, right? Make them sign some NDAs and then bring them in to play the game for hours at a time. Get their feedback, look to see how they perform. I remember one of my favorite memories from my time at Electronic Arts was I was on the Sims team, and at Visceral Games above us, they were making Battlefield Hardline, which was a new entry in the Battlefield series where you played as a cop, an investigator. And they brought us up a floor to play their multiplayer mode, to playtest some of that stuff, and it was so cool getting to see a new game and see what they were trying to accomplish. Anyway, this is one of my students is working on Halo. He actually just left and is going to go work on Warframe right now. But he sent me this photo of the playtesting lab. I think he sent me this photo of the playtesting lab at 343 Industries where they're making Halo Infinite. Anyway, Hell Spells, the first version of our map, as I said, was a big mess, right? Players just kind of went out and they had nowhere to go, so they just kind of wandered around in a circle and became bored very quickly, right? We updated it, saw that it was a problem through our playtesting, and then diversified our map a lot. We added a lot of areas where you could explore, right? And because the collectibles would spawn in these different areas, it made sense for the team to split up. We wanted to have a level design that would split the team up and then bring them back together in the center once all the collectibles had been found. So we accomplished that. It was a much, much better time. And as far as the iterative design process goes, when it comes to playtesting, we are dealing with this half of the board, okay? We are dealing with the analysis and testing phase. Playtesting gets us testing, and then we go back and we analyze that data, analyze what we saw, so that we know how our design should change, okay? Anyway, another really cool thing is that this particular playtesting session helped us identify technical issues too. Do you see these lines, right? Do you see these lines, chat? What do these lines indicate? These lines indicate something that was very surprising to us. What did they say? Yeah. So our players spawn at the top of this building, up a floor, right? And this building has a second floor to it, so you can walk in and explore the ground floor. However, we have lines that take us from the top floor to the bottom floor. We had an issue with our rigid bodies. We had not set the collision detection to be continuous, and so players would occasionally fall through the floor if they stood around for too long and then got hit. So that was a bug that we solved. Here's a reason why we should care about playtesting a lot, particularly at the AAA level. This is the kind of thing that AAA games deal with. Okay, you are making a game, and you are a couple weeks out from release. You release the game, and oh no, something happens. Look at that. That's not great. That's not good. People are going to make fun of this, right? So the good news here is that this bug, if someone plays for an hour, or for 10 hours, it only has a 0.1% chance of happening, right? I would say it's also good news that this is not a bug that breaks the game. It's kind of one of those feature bugs. It's kind of hilarious when you see it. The better news is that we had 4 million sales, right, in our first couple weeks of the launch. That's really good news for us. The bad news is that you multiply these two things together, and we are guaranteed to have about 4,000 instances of the bug, which is more than enough instances for us to get memed on in the press, okay? So it's just kind of funny, right? Just because a bug is rare does not mean that it won't show up and get you memed on if you happen to be successful. So playtesting is really important, particularly at AAA scale, but also for indie scale, right? So I want to talk to you about some big issues. This is the biggest issue that you have to get over when it comes to playtesting, okay? If you've playtested, you'll notice whenever you get some negative feedback, we say how important feedback is, right? And how important it is to take feedback humbly, right? It's not a judgment on you. It's a judgment on your game. Okay, separate yourself from the game. You can emotionally take feedback that way, right? However, whenever you get some feedback, think about it. You're always kind of looking for a certain result already, right? I want this feedback, but it'd be really great. It would be really great if everyone told me they loved my game. That would be really great. I hope they say that, right? And because you have an outcome you want, that can kind of bias the way that you consume and analyze feedback, okay? Let's talk about this. Let's say that you've got a studio and you've got all your great employees and you made this game, right? You've invested a ton of money in this game. One day, one of your employees comes up to you and says, "Hey, I play tested the game last night, and the game is fantastic, okay? Your employee comes up to you and says, you know, no need for play testing further. It's fantastic. I already play tested it for you. What is the problem with this? What is the problem with this right here? Imagine your team member on Project 3 comes up to you and says the game is awesome. I don't think we need any further playtesting. I tested it myself. You trust me, right? You trust me. What's the problem? You know, it's only one opinion. Maybe they missed something, but there's another problem. Bingo. It's biased. Okay? If a team member, they aren't looking at it from a kind of vanilla player's perspective, right? In other words, the team member is invested in the outcome of the game. The team member is biased to believe and hope that this game is good. Otherwise, they're in big trouble, right? The company might go under. They might lose their job. They're not going to be as unbiased as someone who has no stake in the game's success, okay? Let's watch this clip. Who's seen Dumb and Dumber? This is a really, really fantastic clip. Let's take a look.
What do you think the chances are of a guy like you and a girl like me ending up together?
Well, Lloyd, that's difficult to say. We really don't...
Hit me with it. Just give it to me straight. I came a long way just to see you married. Just least you can do is level with me. What are my chances?
Not good.
You mean not good like 1 out of 100?
I'd say more like 1 out of 1,000,000.
So you're telling me there's a chance? Yeah!
All right. So that was a little bit quiet, I apologize. But essentially, Jim Carrey's character, right? Jim Carrey's character asks the female lead, you know, hey, what are my chances, right? The lead actress, what are my chances of us getting together, right? And what's the ironic thing here, the part of the joke, is that he asks, hey, give it to me straight, right? I came a long way, give me the truth, level with me, right? What are our chances of getting together? And she gives him her honest opinion, right? Says, you know, 1 in 1,000,000. And then Jim Carrey's character says, so you're saying there's a chance, right? Yes! And that is totally the wrong takeaway. Jim Carrey's character went into that question with a specific outcome in mind, okay? And because of that, he saw the same evidence that we did, but his interpretation was completely different, right? It was a very biased interpretation. And that's, of course, the joke. He asks for an honest opinion, and then he looks at that honest opinion with the most biased eyes you could possibly imagine. Absurdly biased eyes, okay? This is something called confirmation bias, okay? It's a big, big issue in psychology. Confirmation bias. The idea that we go into some question wanting to confirm something instead of discover something, okay? It's also a big deal in research, too, right? When researchers go into an experiment trying to find a particular outcome from the data, when in reality the data might suggest that a different outcome is in fact the real truth, okay? So it's a huge deal when it comes to research and a big deal with psychology and also with playtesting, okay? You do not want to be Jim Carrey here. You want to go into a playtest with an open mind, okay? Maybe my game is really working. Maybe certain parts of my game is working well, but maybe some parts are not working well. Or maybe my game is a total flop with this audience and we need to adjust. All the possibilities are possible and you need to be an open mind to all of those possibilities, okay? So keep this clip in mind when you're playtesting. Don't let confirmation bias change how you perceive the evidence from the playtest. So question, in the playtesting assignments, why does a different team run your playtest? So when you get to Project 3, we will have a playtesting assignment where you have to design a playtest for your game, and then a different team will actually run that playtest. In other words, you will be running a playtest, but not for your game, for a different game. Why would that be important? In other words, often when you're on the AAA level, when you have someone playtest your game, you'll actually hire a different company to playtest your game and give you the feedback. You will not playtest your own game yourself. You'll have someone else playtest your game. Why would you do this? Why would you do this? Any idea? Why would you have someone chat? Why would you have someone else playtest your game for you? Bingo. You got it. You nailed it, right? So you eliminate your biases from the playtesting process by having a kind of, a no-stakes third-party playtest for you. Right, so you have a different team, or you have a friend playtest for you, or you have a different company playtest for you, because they really don't care about the outcome, right? They do not have a stake in whether that playtest is super positive and says your game is great, go ahead and put it on sale, or whether that playtest is super negative, right? In the company, it's really in their best interest for them to get the truth and not a biased interpretation of the evidence, okay? So that is why. And it can give you a really fresh perspective. Get fresh eyes on it, and you really learn where you are, okay? So anyway, another really great thing that you want to consider is that the people who play games these days, extremely diverse crowd, right? So the crowd that used to play games when they first came out in the 80s and 90s was fairly homogenous. These days, 40% and climbing, right? In fact, I think it's more like 48% now of US gamers are women, right? So it's a fairly balanced crowd. And also a very balanced and diverse crowd in terms of age as well, right? So the average, the ASA in their kind of industry surveys discovered that the average age of a gamer is about 35 years old, okay? So there's a very diverse audience that will play your games. At the end of this semester, the people who play your games at the showcase, your P3 games, will be a very diverse crowd. It will be a lot of students, right? It'll be professors, but it'll also be people who just kind of from the community. It'll be business leaders. It will be former 494 students who are now working out in Seattle, San Francisco, Texas, East Coast, right? It will be all sorts of people playing your games for a long time once you post them. So please keep this in mind. I'm not saying you need to target your game to a very broad audience. That can be very difficult and create kind of milquetoast designs. But keep this in mind. Like, what is your audience? What is your target audience? And you might want to, make sure your design reflects who you want to play your game and who you have in mind. Okay, what genres, stuff like that. Okay. Question for you. Why do amateur games tend to be very difficult? You're making a game in your hobby time and you work on it for a while. You don't playtest it all that much with others, but you playtest it a lot with yourself. Why do games tend to become very difficult when you're making them as an amateur, as a hobbyist, maybe even as a student? Bingo. Keneki, you got it, right? So the problem is you playtest the game a lot, and that's great. But you're not playtesting it with the right group. You're playtesting it with yourself, right? You make a feature, you polish that feature up, you playtest it. You tweak the feature, you playtest it. You play a level, you playtest it, and you edit the level, you playtest it, you make the level a little bit harder, you playtest it. The problem is that every time you playtest your game, you get a bit better at it. And you understand it and how it works a little bit better. Okay? And, the game, you've gotten better at the game, so you're playing the game, you think, oh, wow, the game's really easy, isn't it? Okay, I should make it a little bit harder. So you make the level harder. And then you keep playtesting and you get better. So you think, oh, wow, this level is really easy too, isn't it? I'll make it a little bit harder. and then you play test it, change it a little bit, and oh, this level's easy again. Why is it always so easy? You make it a little bit harder, and what you forget is that you are extremely experienced with your game. Your team is extremely experienced with your game. And when you hand it off to someone who's never seen your game before in their life, it's confusing for them because you haven't had to work on your guidance, because you understand your game, right? So guidance is great. Your guidance is where it needs to be. It's not. And your game is super hard for others, but it's super easy for you, right? Because you're extremely experienced with it. So this is why you need to be playtesting constantly, but not only with yourself. On Project 2, it is your responsibility to make builds and send them to your friends. Send your game out to your friends. Make a web build, make a Mac and Windows build. Send them to your dorm mates, right? Your friends in your dorms. If you're rooming with someone, send them to your roommates. Send them to your family. Do your parents play games much? If they don't, that's fine. Right? That's great, in fact. Send them to people who don't play games a lot so that you can kind of polish up your guidance and your mechanics so that more people can play and make a more accessible game if that's what you want. Okay? Yes. So anyway, I want to talk to you about different types of playtesters, because we just talked about you as a playtester, right? And you are a great playtester. You should be playtesting your game a lot to verify bugs. Write a few lines of code, play the game. Write a few lines of code, play the game, right? It's a really great way to develop. It's a really great way of detecting bugs at the perfect moment for you to fix them, right? So you've got yourself, and then you've got your team, right? Your team is going to be a little bit fresher eyes than what you have, right? So you implement a feature, you're more likely to like it because you made it, right? You're invested. Your teammates are less likely to be invested, more likely to give you an unbiased answer to whether the mechanic works, what needs to change. Then you can move to friends and family. Now, this is still a biased group, right? Because they are invested in your success, right? They're very nice to you. They want you to be happy, hopefully. However, they're a little bit less biased than your team is, so they'll give you a little bit more truth. Then you're talking about your local area. Go find someone in downtown Ann Arbor. Go find someone in the BBB. Don't do that in person, but do that online. Post it to the local Reddit, and you're likely to get some fairly unbiased answers that are still pretty helpful and more numerous because they know you're in the area. You're a local kid, right? They want you to succeed too. And then, when you're truly ready, take your feedback process to the internet, where no one cares about your feelings at all. People love to make fun of you in your game. However, they will give you the most unbiased feedback you can possibly get, and there's a lot of it you can get, because the internet is a very big place, okay? Something I want you to notice about this chart and these different groups is that as we go up, quantity goes up, right? However, intimacy goes down, but as intimacy goes down, bias also goes down, okay? So one thing you should consider is that down here, you're likely to get deeper feedback, okay? You're likely to find someone who's invested in you and your success. So while they might give you more biased feedback, they'll probably give you deeper feedback too. As you go up toward the internet, what you find is that a lot of people, if you ask for feedback, they will give you like a one-liner, and it might be snarky, right? And it might be just a meme, right? You might get a piece of feedback that's like, lol, bad game. Great. Like, some Steam reviews are that low quality. And while they are low quality, they're not useless, okay? Even if someone simply says, I don't like it, that does give you some amount of knowledge, right? It's a number in your mental box that says, okay, people are not overall liking this experience that much, even if you don't get a lot of great feedback. So when you're playtesting each other's games, you should be around here, right? Right in the middle. You kind of care about the other team and their success, and you want to see them succeed, since this is not a zero-sum course. It doesn't matter how many people get A's in this course. If you put in the work, if you hit the quality, you'll get the A. But also, you don't care about the other team too much, so you got that nice level of non-biasedness. Also, you are a game designer. You're becoming a professional. You want to go deep, okay? Instead, never just say, I don't like the game. You always use because, okay? Because is the magic word, okay, when you're giving feedback. I had a bad experience because the player's movement speed is too slow, which puts them at a significant disadvantage compared to the enemies in this particular area. So I recommend balancing the enemies to be a little bit slower, or maybe the player to be a little bit faster to give the player a better feeling of power and confidence and agency in the game world. That is the kind of feedback that you need to deliver. Okay. So there's another type of two types of feedback. You can go out and you can actually hire out professional playtesters and quality assurance people who will playtest your game and give you incredible feedback from a variety of different perspectives. For instance, what is it like to be a colorblind person playing your game? Do you use any mechanics that require use of color to recognize danger or recognize a key or something like that? Can you use something like texture in addition to color so that colorblind players can still get through your game and use its mechanics? Another interesting designation or category of playtesters are people whose opinions are so important to you that you want to save them, because you can only ever get a first impression from someone once. Okay? And there's a fantastic story. There's a story of a Genova Chen, who's a famous game designer who worked on, who's at that game company, and he made the game Journey, and I believe he made a game called Flow as well. He was roommates with my mentor, Jeremy Bond, who teaches at MSU now, and taught 494 when I was taking it. And what happened was that while they were creating Journey, they wouldn't let Jeremy Bond, his roommate, play the game. They were roommates, right? And Genova was making Journey, but he wouldn't let Jeremy Bond play the game until the timing was right. And he saved Jeremy for the last little bit of development, where they were balancing stuff and tweaking the game's presentation, because Genova knew that Jeremy Bond's first impression could only happen once, okay? He could only get the first impression from Jeremy, who he deeply respected, once, okay? And so he saved it. It's a tissue playtester. Playtester who you can only use once, so you have to be careful. I want to talk to you a little bit about playtesting technologies. We're going to move kind of fast. At the big labs, you'll find some really cool tech. Overwatch is a very popular game. Here are some really cool glasses from a company called Pupil Labs. And let me see if I can move it down here. Oh, no, the link doesn't work, sorry. I think Baidu removed it. It's glasses that have a camera on the outside and a camera facing inward. What they do is they use some image recognition to look at your pupils and kind of use some trig to say, okay, where is the player looking on the screen? And so as you can see, this video recording actually shows us where the player focuses their attention. Now, a player's attention, a player's viewpoint, tells you what they care about, okay? Where's the player looking? Always on the horizon, right? Looking for enemies. Now watch where the player's eyes go after a fight. Watch where the player's eyes go after a fight. Okay, I see an enemy. Lock onto the enemy. Locked onto the enemy. Looking. Good. The confrontation is over. The eyes dart to the HUD. Did you see that? Confrontation ends and the eyes always go to the corner. Okay, look at your cooldown abilities. Look at your health. Okay, where am I? Good. And then back to the horizon to scan for enemies, right? Isn't that incredible? You can actually, it's a window into the player's mind. As soon as a player is done fighting, right, their eyes are locked on to the enemy if they can see one. As soon as the player's done fighting, their eyes immediately jump to the HUD to check on their cooldowns. Okay, are my abilities ready? Because if I get into a fight in the next 5 seconds, I need them to be ready. Otherwise, I should go hide. And then they also go over to the health. Okay, so should I go find a health power-up? Should I call for help from the Mercy player or one of the healers, right? And so it's an incredible view into what the player cares about in any given moment. You can imagine that maybe you have a level design and you're trying to guide the player, and you have a level design where the player needs to notice a hint that is scrawled onto a cave wall, but you put goggles on them and you notice, you know what, they're not looking at the hint. So they're getting confused. We're not guiding them properly. Okay, so let's make a change to the scroll on the wall. Let's make it glow. Okay, let's make it really grab the player's attention. Now you put the goggles on the player and you can see, oh, their eyes bolt to the scroll, and then to the door, and then to the scroll, right? You can see, okay, now our level design is working much better, okay? That's the power you can get from this kind of glasses. They're very expensive, though, but maybe I can find it in the budget. I really want to buy one for $4.94 so students can try them out. That'd be super cool. Maybe we could buy some for Wolverine Soft Studio. Oh, that would be so cool. Amber, we need to get that budget going for Wolverine Soft. Get those support packages out so we can buy some of this cool hardware. Anyway, there's other cool technologies out there too. This is a website called browsershots.org. What you can do is you can point this at your website, your personal portfolio website, and it will tell you what your website looks like in all of these different browsers. Because there are a ton of different browsers out there, even though Chrome, Firefox, and Safari kind of dominate the market right now. And you can see that there is my personal website, ayarger.com, does not render in a browser called Lynx. I have no idea what this browser is. Interestingly, if it renders like this in a browser called Dillo, which is apparently a very simple browser that doesn't do HTML5 canvas or anything else. It doesn't do much CSS either, or styling. So there you go. That helps you see what a user could see your website as in a browser like Dillo. There's another really cool technology from Amazon called Amazon Device Farm, where they have a huge warehouse, apparently, of all of these different devices, right? Amazon Android Galaxy tablets, the latest iPhones, all sorts of unique devices, where you can upload your game, your Android app or your iOS app. You can upload your game, and it will actually play your game on the device. And it will randomly spam taps everywhere to try and play through your game, and it will send you screenshots of what it looks like. And that's really great because it will also it'll also tell you like the memory usage and whether your frame rate is okay. You can also do tests and logging and all of that. This is really useful. On one of our games, Bunches of Lunches, which you can actually go play, we had a problem because I don't own. I own one tablet, and I own like one Android device. I don't own an iOS device at all. And so, you might play the game on your device and not even know that on another device, it actually is cut off because the aspect ratio on that device isn't what you designed the game for and not what you're used to, right? So if you play our game on a Samsung Galaxy tablet during this period, you'd see that, wow, parts of the screen and UI are cut off. It looks horrible, right? And same, during gameplay, the Match 3 gameplay, the icons are cut off, right? Some of the graphics are cut off, your score is cut off, it looks terrible, right? And so we discovered this by using Amazon Device Farm, by playtesting in as many contexts as we could. And we were able to adjust how things are rendered so that it works on any device of any aspect ratio, right? Another really cool thing, a service is Amazon Mechanical Turk, which is they describe this as artificial intelligence, where you can essentially pay a little bit of money, a few cents per test, to basically put up a survey at any time on any topic. So you can put up a survey, have people play your game, and then give you feedback if you want. It's really, really cool. Another cool thing that we recently set up a couple months ago is that we set up a link where what happens is we have an automated build system where it will take the code from our repository, build the game in all of its versions. It will then start playing the game on my Macintosh desktop, and it will open OBS, and it will start live streaming a playtesting bot trying to play through our game, which is super, super cool. Here's what it looked like. I don't think it's running right now because it's down to add some features. But essentially, I could watch our playtesting bot at home playtest the game on live stream, And you could see that, wow, after 30 minutes of play, the AI gets into this weird behavior where they just want to like stand there and just wiggle back and forth, right? So it's super, super useful, automated playtesting. It's really, really fun technology. Anyway, I'm going to finish this up in just a moment. I don't think we'll go too far beyond 120. Here's the question, chat. Can playtesting and QA go wrong? How can playtesting and QA go wrong? What can go wrong when you try and playtest? When you collect playtesting data from a lot of different sources, what can go wrong? And then I'll tell you a fun story. So I'm going to tell you the story, chat, and this will kind of give you a feeling. Selection bias, right? Confirmation bias. There's another interesting way that the data collection and playtesting process can go wrong. Okay, so this is Rich Hilleman, who was the chief creative officer at Electronic Arts when I was there in 2014, 2015. And Richard Hilleman was he told us a story. He told us a story about the first Jak and Daxter game, right? Who has played Jak and Daxter? Anyone? So Jak and Daxter is an interesting game. It is a platforming game, and it was created by Naughty Dog after the Crash Bandicoot series. This story was about the first game in the series, and in particular, it was about the map design in the game. Okay, so Naughty Dog, when they were making this game, had implemented some analytics. And this analytics system would tell players where they died. It would tell the team where players died. And this was used as a proxy to make things more difficult, less difficult. They had this balance they wanted to find where players would die a little bit, but not too much at different parts of the game, different locations in the map. Okay? And so Naughty Dog got this data, right, from a lot of playtests. And they said to themselves, oh my gosh, good gosh. In like the first area of the game, there was like a cliff. And you could jump this cliff, and it wasn't a super hard jump, but if you missed the jump, you would die, okay? And what they discovered was that there was just a ton of deaths happening at this first, cliff, right? And they thought, oh my gosh, right? This is the first area of the game. There's like a cliff you can die on. Like, okay, we need to make this way easier, right? Because there are just deaths happening all the time there, right? It's horrible. Players are having a terrible time at this cliff. And that's the takeaway that they could have had. However, when they looked way closer at the data, they realized it was trying to fool them. Because, as it turns out, in this game, if you die, something interesting happens. If you die, you get one of these funny death animatics, right? One of these funny death animations where Daxter, your sidekick, makes fun of you, right, and taunts you. Let's take a look.
I'll say something really teary at the funeral, like,
How am I gonna get changed back now?
that looks like it hurt. Should I call for backup?
Heimlich, stretcher?
Yuck. Reverend? Well, better you than me.
Right? So every time you die in this game, you get this really funny animation, right? Where Daxter interacts and it builds their character. And so what Naughty Dog discovered was that this cliff wasn't super difficult. What they discovered was that if anyone died on this cliff, they would respawn and then die about 20 more times in a row, trying to watch all of the different fun interactions with Daxter, because it was just fun to die in this particular game, right? So this is an instance where the data was actually fooling the dev team, right? So just because you have data doesn't mean you should just take whatever it's saying at face value. You must always take the data as a hint and then explore further, okay? In other words, if the data, if playtesters kind of are saying that they don't like your mechanic, right? That might mean they don't like this version of the mechanic, right? It doesn't mean you should scrap the mechanic. It means maybe there's something tiny that's wrong with it. but it also might mean that the entire mechanic is deeply flawed. You have to look closer yourself and see. Okay? Don't just take playtests at face value. You also have to take that data and look closely at what's really going on. Form some hypotheses, make some changes, do the iterative dev process, right? And then playtest again to see if you're correct in your changes, in your analysis, okay? Another quick thing before we go, here are some tips and tricks. If you want to get a less biased playtest, when you hand your game to someone, don't tell them you made it, okay? Tell them someone else made it. If someone knows that you made the game and they're playtesting right in front of you, they might try, they don't want to hurt your feelings, or maybe they do, but they usually don't. And they might give you a softer bit of feedback than what you would get if they knew someone else had made the game, and they're not going to hurt your feelings, okay? Ask players, right? Ask your playtesters to, hey, you can ask questions, but I can't answer them, okay? Because remember, you don't want to bias the playtest. So as soon as your playtester is playing the game, you are out of there. You're hands off. You're watching, but you're not going to help them at all unless they really get stuck, okay? Whatever questions your playtesters ask, that will give you a hint as to what's going on in their brain and what's happening in your game, okay? What you need to change, okay? A big one, observe. Forget about what they say. That's important, but it's not everything. Observe their facial expressions and their body expressions, okay? If they're enjoying your game, it will be obvious by their facial expressions and their body language. They'll be really engaged, right? They'll be looking at it. They'll be kind of trying stuff out. They'll be laughing a little bit maybe, right? They'll be asking themselves questions. If they're not very engaged, if they're bored, they might be like, They might look around a little bit. They might check their watch even, right? Okay, I need to get someplace, right? If they're confused, they might be like, what? Yeah, I didn't think that would happen. Wait, why is this happening? What do I do? I'm frustrated, right? People communicate so much through their body language. Like someone might be saying, yeah, it's okay. I'm liking the game so far. But if their body language doesn't say that, then they're just trying to put on a nice face, right? And there's a really great extra credit video on playtesting, which you should check out later, okay? I'm gonna break now. This is the end of lecture. I'm gonna put on this funny video where someone reads the patch notes of The Sims 3. It's very, very funny. A lot of interesting stuff can go wrong in this game. But otherwise, I want to thank you all so much for joining us for this lecture. Please get an early start on P2. Get started right away. And remember our last lecture, sketch, okay? Sketch out some designs for your mechanic. Sketch out the most important emotional moment of your game's design. What's the really fun part about your game's mechanics? See if you can draw it up to the point where it's obvious to anyone why your mechanic would be fun. And otherwise, thank you so much. If you have any questions, I'll stick around for about 10 minutes, okay, until about 1:35, and we'll watch this video, okay? Then we'll put some music on. Thank you, everyone. GG. Have a good time. Have a fantastic weekend. Stay healthy and stay safe, okay?
All right, let's check the patch notes for The Sims 3. Kleptomaniac Sims can no longer steal subway stations from lots. Sims can no longer woohoo in the elevator with a Sim who is on a different floor. The Grim Reaper will no longer be prevented from reaping souls due to band affiliation. Fixed a tuning issue so that Sims now vomit at acceptable levels. It is no longer possible to try for baby with a Grim Reaper. Become enemies with child wish no longer appears. Sims who are on fire will no longer be forced to attend graduation before they can put themselves out. Pregnant Sims can no longer brawl. Baby Sims will no longer become stuck on a Sim's hand while driving a car. Sims will no longer receive a wish to skinny dip with mummies. A meteor can hit a building, which case everyone will run out before the collision. Those who do not exit the building will die. Sims automatically leave if a meteor is approaching unless it is a school in which children are not allowed to leave and always die.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so that's why we got to playtest. Gotta find those design issues, those design and technical bugs. Okay, we'll throw on some music. Please ask any questions if you have any questions, chat. You got about 7 more minutes. So that's a very good question. That's a very good question, Royal Peaches. So in the past, the way that we've gotten around this is that when someone is playtesting your game, they must have OBS running and they must have their webcam turned on so that you can both see the video of their gameplay, but you can also see their face and you can see kind of how they're reacting to what happens in the game, whether they smile, whether they're just kind of bored, you know, whether they look confused. I haven't decided if we're going to require that or not, because some students might not have a webcam. I think we might try and do that for P2. We're going to require that students use OBS, set up OBS, much like how I have it set up now, where you can see their face in the corner, you can see the big gameplay, and then we'll have them upload it. And we'll probably give exceptions to students who can show that they don't have a webcam or that their computer can't handle playing the game and recording at the same time, okay? So that's probably how we'll do it. So you'll be sent the footage and the gameplay footage later for your own analysis, okay? How original do our ideas need to be? Obviously not just going to copy something that exists, but a lot of my ideas come from things that exist in similar ways. Yes. So generally you want to try something that we haven't seen in games before. But so it'd be fine to take an idea from a movie, inspiration from a movie or comic or another piece of media. However, we understand how difficult it is to create something new, given how many games are already out there. It's impossible to have played them all. So what we want is we want to see ideas that are not super mainstream. And it's fine if you use an existing game mechanic as a foundation, but then you build on it and tweak it, okay? So again, if you look at Super Mario Bros., the NES game, it has an extremely innovative jump mechanic that works extremely well and is very juicy and very deep from a decision-making standpoint. However, jumps already existed. It wasn't the first jump to ever exist in a game. Like Donkey Kong, the arcade game, had a jump, right? But it was very stiff and it was very small. And so Super Mario Brothers, its big innovation was let's create a jump mechanic that starts with what Donkey Kong had, and let's make it much better. We're going to add variable jump height, which was totally new. We're going to add the fact that you can change direction in midair. That was totally new. We're going to let you jump much, much higher than normal so we can make more intricate level designs and more interesting designs. That was totally new, right? So take what already exists and expand upon it and tweak it and see what happens. That is something that you can definitely do. You might have heard the phrase, maybe even in the research context, like stand on the shoulders of giants, right? It's the idea that you take what already exists and you use that to further the state of the art, okay? It's this collaborative process in which society advances and advances and advances by people building on top of other people's work, right? Okay, so there are a billion ways to come up with an idea for your P2 Gold Spike, your new mechanic. One of my favorite ways to do it is, and this is different for everyone, but I go for a walk, I get away from games, I go for a walk, and then I think about what is interesting in real life, right? I think about, hey, what is the life of a firefighter like? If you were forced to make a game based around firefighting, how would you do that? What are the interesting mechanics that appear during a firefighter's job? Okay, you've got areas that can collapse. You've got buildings that can collapse. So, okay, let's have platforms that collapse, the longer you stand on them. Or maybe you have to collapse a platform in a certain way so that it's actually a puzzle, and you can get through the stage. Maybe you have a level where you can only ever stand on something for 0.5 seconds, and you never get that platform back. So you have to make it count whenever you stand on something. What about water and fluid? Can we make a mechanic that deals with how water can flow around a stage? So you have to punch holes in the stage to get water to flow around, because firefighters deal a lot with water, right? So that's the kind of thing that I usually do. I think about the real world. I think about how would I gamify this? How would I gamify that? But you can also think about other games that you love, and you can think about, okay, what if we combined these two games together, right? So you love Call of Duty, first-person shooter, but you also love Crypto the Necrodancer, a rhythm game. What happens if we made a first-person rhythm game? What happens if we made a first-person game where you don't pull the trigger on your gun, but the bullets automatically come out on the beat, and you need to just make sure you're in the right place. Right? You make sure you're aiming at the right place when that beat goes off. New type of rhythm game. Combining stuff together is a really good way to get new ideas. Oh yes. That reminds me of something we need to send out, Ishwar. That reminds me, we need to send out a note. If you make a controller game, it must have a keyboard and mouse mode. It absolutely must. That's something we need to send out. Send out on Piazza. All P2 and P3 controller-based games must have a keyboard mode. So any playtester can playtest. Okay? In fact, Ishwar, while I'm answering more questions, can you send that out? Ishwar, can you send out a note reminding students that for the COVID-19 semesters, they must implement a keyboard and mouse mode if they want to have controller support, okay? And I'm going to put that on our assignment spec here, actually, just as a reminder. P2 Gold Spike. We'll put a nice little restriction on here for the COVID semester. If controller-based okay. Okay, excellent. Thank you. Spectacular question. Thank you. Thank you, Dingwall. You're probably better off just making keyboard mouse games if you want less work. However, some games are just really, really great for a controller. And we do have Xbox 360 controllers, and we will be the ones grading you. So if you want to focus on controller, then you can do so. But for playtesting purposes, you must. If your game is controller-based, we will playtest with controllers because we always have controllers. But your playtesters might do the keyboard and mouse. So, in that way, at least you can get feedback on, even if it's not your primary control scheme you want to focus on, you can still get feedback on your game structure, its interesting decisions. The controller-based feedback might just not be as useful, though. The controls-based, Okay, excellent. All right, that's time. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us. If you have any other questions, just please reach out to us, Discord, email, Piazza. and we'll get to those as quickly as we can, okay? We hope you're all rested up. We hope you're excited to go into this. It's your first big batch of creative freedom, so please embrace it, and we will see you next time, okay? Super excited. We'll talk about juice next time, an extremely potent and enjoyable topic. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.